I'm going to show you how to model 1/3 plus 1/4 using fraction strips like this. What you're going to do is you're going to trace this. But before we start tracing, we need to find something called the least common multiple of the bottom two numbers here, 3 and 4. Again, we're going to find the least common multiple of the bottom two numbers, 3 and 4. And if you don't have to write this whole thing out, you could abbreviate it like this. The least common multiple of 3 and 4. So this is the same thing as all that. You can see here I wrote out the multiples of 3 and 4, and I can see the least common multiple for 3 and 4 is going to be 12. So the least common multiple is what I'm going to be using to help create the model for 1/3 plus 1/4. Step 1, you're going to create the model for 1/3 plus 1/4 by tracing 1/3 and 1/4 next to each other. So let me show you that right now. So you can see I traced 1/3 and I labeled it in. You can see that if you look closely enough, you can see how I traced it, because you can see right through the paper. So I traced 1/3. Now I need to add the 1/4 to this piece. Now you can see that I added the 1/4 to the 1/3. And notice that they're different size parts, and that's why we're not able to add them yet, because you have to have the same size parts. And in order to do that, you got to find the least common multiple of the two bottom numbers, also known as the least common denominator of 1/3 and 1/4. So find the least common multiple, which is 12. And I'm going to use this 12 to create my equivalent fractions. See here on my fraction strips, 1/12 is here. So I'm going to use this and I'm going to trace it directly underneath these two parts. So now you can see I traced the 12s underneath the 1/3 plus 1/4. And I didn't trace all of the 12s. I only traced enough so that it matches up with the length of the 1/3 and the 1/4 combined. And now that's enough to come up with the answer for 1/3 plus 1/4. So looking here, I can see that 1/3, this piece right here, is the same thing as 4/12, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the 1/4 is the same thing as 1, 2, 3 twelfths right there. So I'm just going to rewrite this so I can show what this looks like without the pictures. And I put here 1/3 plus 1/4. That represents this first line. 1/3 plus 1/4. That's the expression there. And now I can see that the 1/3, as I said before, 1/3 from here to here is the same thing as 4/12. So 1, 2, 3, 4/12. So underneath the 1/3, I'm going to put 4/12. And then similarly, I can see that the 1/4 here, from here to here, 1/4 is the same as 1, 2, 3/12. So that is the same as 3/12. And if you were to add 4/12 plus 3/12, you get the answer 7/12. Now I know that 1/3 plus 1/4 is equal to 7/12. Going back here, I forgot to put my answer for this, but the least common multiple that we found earlier, the least common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. So just a recap of what I just talked about. To create a model, you're going to trace the 1/3 plus the 1/4 next to each other. You're going to find the least common multiple of your two bottom numbers, which in this case was 3 and 4. We found out to be 12 when you write out the multiples. That's the smallest number they share. And then once I found the least common multiple, I used that to trace out the 12s directly underneath the 1/3 and the 1/4, so that the length of these matches the length of that. And then all you had to do to figure out what's 1/3 plus 1/4 is you just have to count how many 12ths were equivalent to adding these two together. So looking at this, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 12ths is equal to 1/3 plus 1/4. And then that's what I put down over here. 1/3 plus 1/4 equals 7/12.